of goes down the drain, but when you flush it down the toilet. Yes, let's learn. All right, here we go. And this is Miss Laura Lynn.
Hi, I'm Laura Lynn Spiro. I'm the Lead Communications Coordinator for the Metropolitan Wastewater Management Commission.
And this is?
Hello, I'm April Miller. I'm the Communications Coordinator for the Metropolitan Wastewater Management Commission.
And check it out, Eco Chick is back!
It's the party crasher, Eco Chick. I'm just so curious about water treatment that I just had to join Amy today. So,
we're happy to have you. Okay, Miss Laura Lynn's going to get us started off.
All right. Well, welcome to the Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant. This treatment plant serves both Eugene and Springfield. So all the wastewater that's produced in both cities comes through here through a series of pipes. So basically, like when you flush your toilet, you run water down your kitchen sink, it comes through several miles of pipe here to the treatment plant. So we're going to look at the process from when it comes into the treatment plant and then when all the steps in between before it exits clean into the Willamette River. So we're going to start off with a little bit of just background information. And I won't get into too many details, but basically the commission runs this as a regional partnership between the two cities in Lane County. It was enacted, built because of the 1972 Clean Water Act. The treatment plant came online in 1984, and we've been cleaning wastewater from Eugene, Springfield ever since here at the site. When water comes in, the wastewater, it's 99.9% water, but there is that 0.01% that's pollutants, and it's mostly, pee and poo, if we want to be frank. And we then clean out of that 0.01%, 97.5% of the pollutants before it is cleaned and goes out to the Willamette River. So we're going to show you, as I mentioned, all the steps in between it coming in and exiting. The first one we're going to go see is the bar screens. And the bar screens are probably one of the coolest spots at the treatment plant. So give us a moment as we walk up to them and you'll get to see them in action.
Okay, it's going to get a little louder, so we'll speak up a little bit as we follow the crew, check things out. So one day when you're back in school, there's also a chance that you might get to come here with your class to see this in action because you really need your nose to be here as well. There's some seriously interesting smells happening.
This is the bar screens. And when the wastewater comes in, it does have some, paper, which we need to remove. It also can have garbage, which you're not supposed to use the toilet as a trash can. But whatever's been flushed down the toilet, this is our first step in removal of the pollutants. And so that's, again, toilet paper. You're going to see it come out and be sifted.
See the gunk in that, you guys? Ready! That's toilet paper?
Yeah, there we go.
That's gross. That's toilet paper?
That is mostly toilet paper, yes.
Okay, that's gross.
So what happens is those cloths go down in the water. They sift through it to pick up any material like toilet paper. Then it dumps it onto a conveyor belt behind that little wall. The conveyor belt goes into our grind house, and then it chews it up and then fits it into a dump truck, which then hauls it to Short Mountain, our main landfill here in Lane County.
Wow, I wish there was a scratch and sniff in this video, you guys.
Oh, we've had, unfortunately, somebody's dentures, watches, toys, retainers.
All right.
You name it, we have had it come in and be sifted out of here.
And where does the sifted stuff go?
It goes into our grind house.
Okay.
It gets ground up and then dumped into a dump truck and then goes to Short Mountain, the landfill.
Okay.
So this is really the only place that we can't reuse and recycle anything out of the treatment process. This is truly just garbage at this point. And but the rest of the steps, we'll talk about some of our sustainability practices that we have in our process.
Okay.
So we're gonna head on down out of this noisy area and go to the grit chamber.
All right, here we go.
So these are between this and this structure over here. This is our biofilter. And throughout the plant, all the white pipes you see, we're actually pulling off odorous air from the system and all the processes and putting it through this biofilter, which is with microorganisms like an algae. And that's so that when we discharge the water, it'll actually diffuse up through the rocks. It doesn't smell as bad as it could if we didn't do this biofilter. There would be a lot more smell from the process if we didn't have some of our structures covered and we didn't run the biofilter.
Okay. That don't really smell a lot right now.
No, and that's the part of the reason.
Okay.
Is because the biofilter and the structures being covered.
Okay.
The other thing from this, which we'll talk about from when we get from over to the primary clarifiers, is, and most of it happens in the digesters. We'll pull off methane gas, and we'll actually pull the gas off the digesters, and then run that through a co-generator and create natural gas. And so that, we're actually building a natural gas cleaning station to utilize all of our.
So that's biomass.
Biogas.
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure what terminology the kids would understand.
Biomass is the most known, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Huh, fascinating.
And April, feel free to jump in if you want to add anything.
Okay. So all of this is filled with.
This is so after the primary clarifiers, which is these structures here.
That's those primary clarifiers.
Which has an arm in there on the top that sifts off fat, oils, and greases.
Okay.
And there's an arm in the bottom of this chamber that pushes all the solids as they sink down then into these digesters. So basically poop. And then they go into the digesters and they're breaking down in an anaerobic state. So the microorganisms in there aren't using oxygen and they're breaking down the solids. And this is also where we mainly pull off of our biogas, is in these structures called digesters.
Okay, so these are the digesters. You guys can see that, maybe you can't, but that says number 1, primary digester. All that.
Yes. So we just built this digester 2 years ago.
Okay.
And so
you have more space to do like more if you need to, right?
Yeah. So we actually, that's a great question.
Because we, as our city grows, we have to be able to handle all of the waste from people's homes and apartments. So
yes, that was one of the reasons that the commission and the cities picked this site. As it was originally where Eugene had their wastewater treatment plant.
Yep. I'm very familiar because this was my grandparents' property, not very far from here, and it was sold to the city. And this was, I was 13 and that happened, so we were, right next to that lovely place.
Nice.
Right outside.
So yes, this site is 106 acres.
Yeah.
Roughly, and it was selected because it could be built with future capacity in mind and redundancy.
And so access to the river.
Yeah. It was like the perfect spot because of all those things.
Yeah.
And the reason we have redundancy or multiples of one thing, like we have 4 digesters, is if one has to go down for maintenance, we still can run the process. I mean, the plant runs 24/7. Somebody is here working at the plant 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So the process, wastewater is always being created. Doesn't matter what time of the day it is. Yeah. And so somebody has to be here, and the plant has to run. Yeah. And so we have redundancy built in, also for the maintenance. Also, if something happens, we can switch over you know, as the city grows, we can meet future demand.
Right.
It's all those things. So that's a great question.
Redundancy means you've got backups, right?
That's right.
You got similar stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
So when it's nighttime and people are here, what are they doing? Like, what are the people doing? We hardly see anybody out here. What roles do they play in this?
Sure, that's a great question. So the people that are here, there's always a couple operators on site. Those are the people that sit in our what's called our console room or the control room. Basically, they're the brains of the operation. So there's like a room with all these computer screens and monitors, and they're monitoring the process to make sure it's working properly. If an alarm goes off or an indicator that they have to go adjust something or address an issue, then they are here on site and can automatically just go do it. So that's why there's somebody here all the time. So those operators tend to have a degree in biology because they also have to do testing of the water to make sure that the right microorganisms are in there, the right balance of microorganisms, and they also need some technical like computer skills. So you can imagine there's kind of a combination there.
Yeah.
We also have electricians because a lot of our process does have electricity using it. We also have maintenance, and they tend to do like repairs, construction. They fix stuff. Let's see. I'm a communications person, so I have a degree in marketing. And April has a degree in journalism. So we do PR, public relations, these kind of things, education. I think we have a really fun job. But if you're really into science, there's a ton of jobs here. We also have people with environmental engineering degrees, people with environmental like policy and analyst degrees that constantly make sure we're meeting regulation or talking about new sustainability practices within our practices of treating the water. So there's all kinds of stuff that you could, if you're interested, wastewater.
There's
really,
lots of jobs for you. Awesome.
yes, there's operators are one of the things
Yeah.
we're really needing at this point.
Sweet.
Kids to really think about going into that biology degree and science tech.
Yeah. So, and if we were to go and see the top of the clarifier, what would you be showing us in that?
There's two arms, and we'll actually see something similar at the secondary clarifiers, and I'll point that out. But
Okay.
there's a big metal arm that goes out across the tank, and then it slowly moves around like this, and it sifts off fat, oils, and grease.
Okay.
Same thing at the bottom of the tank, and it gets rid of pushes the waste to the digester.
Okay. And so that's open? So you can see that?
That particular one, yes.
Okay.
As I mentioned, some other jobs, there's a lot of science that goes on here. We actually have a lab. Maybe we can look in here real quick.
Oh, yeah, look at the lab coats even. It's very official.
And we are constantly testing to make sure, again, the process is running properly. This is also where we do tests for pre-treatment and overall for our process. So
you're testing to make sure that the water is okay to go into the river.
Yeah, and we're meeting our it's meeting the regulations of our permit. So we have a permit with the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality, DEQ.
Okay.
So
we are accountable.
We're accountable.
Yep. Okay.
And we have to meet that permit. And so we are constantly testing to make sure we are meeting those regulations.
Okay.
So this was a new lab we just built in the actually come online last year.
Oh, wow.
Because when our original lab was built, it was back in 1979, between that and 84. And we have obviously the population of Eugene Springfield has grown since then. And we've had to bring on additional staff in order to meet additional regulations. And it finally became a point where we had to build a new lab in order to meet that, those additional regulations. I did want to jump in real quick, if we can, to the console room, just so you can see the brains.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Here we go. Whoa, look at that.
So this is the console room.
Can I get a little closer?
Yeah.
All right. So what's going on with all this stuff? Somebody's watching all this stuff.
You want to
happening.
jump in a little bit and just say what you do in a typical
Sure,
day?
yeah, this is the console. So this is where we monitor the plant processes. We have our pump stations that we monitor, and we can control a lot of the plant processes from here remotely. Most of the plant's automated.
So is this one person doing all this?
Yes.
That's a lot of screens. You're good. Yeah.
So, yeah,
Awesome.
a lot going on, but
I know, right?
we monitor alarms. And,
Is this the heartbeat?
problems. Yeah, that's the heartbeat of the plant right there. Actually, that's some air pressure, air
Okay.
compressors right there. But yeah, we have trends for all the equipment.
Awesome. Wow. Well, thank you.
A log of everything that goes on.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And the operators do an excellent job. We won our peak performance award for
Awesome.
13 years in a row.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so they do an awesome job.
That's cool.
So I started off, we started off the tour with physical removal.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we go now to biological removal. And this is really where the microorganisms come into play. And so we're going to go up to the top of the aeration basins. And
when you're saying microorganisms, those are the things that are alive, right?
that's correct.
Yes.
Yep.
The little tiny things that are
Yes.
alive within there.
We call them small bugs, we call them small bugs, big impact.
Uh-huh.
Okay, yep.
Because they do the process. They clean eat the poop is basically what the waste I can say.
Okay.
They're super important.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, look at all of this.
So the first 4 tanks aren't online. They're again our redundancy or our backups.
Okay. So that's why the water level's a little low?
Yes.
Okay.
They're just holding water. When we get down to the last 4, you'll see a considerable difference.
Okay. How many are here?
8.
And the smell isn't that bad here.
No, it's about typical.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Okay, now there's a little bit more smell here.
Okay. And you can see the difference in the water level and
I don't know if you guys can see that very well, but that water is not swimmable. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and then look at this is really shallow and it's like
Yeah.
flowing on down. Wow.
So what's happening here?
okay, so this is the aeration basins, and the reason they're called aeration is because we actually introduce air or oxygen into the water. That's what these blowers way at the end are. Those big fans, those are blowers.
Okay.
And we also introduce microorganisms.
Oh wait, there's ducks over there. Is that bad?
Well, it's a natural food source.
Oh gosh. You guys, I don't know if you can see that, but there are ducks floating in the water.
They're not bothered at all. You'll see even more when we get to secondary clarifiers.
Okay.
So we introduce microorganisms.
Just in case you were wondering, don't drink the water.
And these microorganisms will go in, the reason they're called microorganisms is that you have to use a microscope to see them. If they're introduced into the water, they'll stay in there about 5 days, eating, getting fat and happy. And then as they get fat and happy, they actually start forming together what's called a flock. They start getting lazy because they're so fat and happy. And then those flocks, as we move the water onto the secondary clarifiers, will go with the water, and then we'll actually remove the microorganisms out at the secondary clarifiers.
Okay.
One thing that's significant about these microorganisms is they're actually found naturally in our water sources. So what we're basically doing here at the treatment plant is speeding up the natural process of cleaning water.
Okay.
If you think about water being rained and it goes through the soil, or it rains and goes in the river, or in the old days when there was hardly anybody, you know, less people living along the rivers and waste would go in, the water would clean it eventually with the same microorganisms.
Yeah.
So these are found in, you know, they're not something we
Okay.
produce synthetically, they are natural.
Oh.
And we're just speeding up the
Yep.
process.
Okay.
And this all happens in a 24-hour period. So water comes in, think of a gallon.
Yeah.
And it comes into the plant and it goes through all of our processes and out to the Willamette River in a 24-hour period. So we're going to now finish through the aeration basins, and we're going to walk to the secondary clarifiers. And you're going to see a considerable difference in the clarity of the water because of these microorganisms and what they're doing.
Okay. So still mucky, foamy.
Typically when I've had the 5th grade classes out here, because that's what we give a lot of tours to 5th graders. It smells more like the beach than today. Today it's a little stronger.
Yes, today does not smell like the beach, you guys.
No,
It's not beachy. So now we're headed to the
secondary
Secondary.
clarifiers,
Okay.
which is the second and last step in biological removal. So we went from physical removal with the bar screens, the grit chamber, and the primary clarifiers. We just did the aeration basin, which is the start of biological removal. We're going to go to secondary clarifiers to finish that biological removal. And then we're going to go into chemical removal,
Okay.
which is the last step. So this is the primary or secondary clarifiers. And the secondary clarifiers, and this one's not running, and the primary clarifiers, which we didn't go up to see, are very similar. They look generally the same thing.
This is the arm.
This is the arm that will go around and remove fat, oils, and grease. And then there's the same arm down at the bottom of the tank that pushes all the solids to the center and over to the digesters.
Okay.
So we're going to go down and see one online.
Okay.
And when I mean online, I mean it's working.
Got it.
It's running. But
Like-
one thing I didn't mention about the aeration basins is because there's so much oxygen or air in the water, if you fell in, you would sink like that.
Oh.
It would be very hard for us to rescue you
No kidding.
because of the differential between your body weight and the air.
Whoa.
And so I always tell the kids when they're here in person and the teacher, this is where we have to be the most careful. Everybody just
Yeah.
don't get too close to the rail.
Yeah, take a swim. Wow, that's
That's
interesting.
another science. I mean, that's
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, science is so rad. You just
No
never
kidding.
know what you're gonna learn because of science.
water level. Obviously, this is running over too.
Yeah.
Well, and these are called wares. I'm sitting right. It's been 6 months since I did a tour. And these little spiky things, and it just helps kind of filter even more and direct the water. So
Where does all this water enter the Willamette?
we're gonna actually see the outfall at the end of our tour.
Okay.
But since you asked the question, if you guys are familiar with the bike path in Eugene, we're right by the Pluto sign. So if that helps anybody,
Okay.
we're just down from the Owasso Bridge.
Yeah.
Between that and I guess the Delta Beltline interchange.
That's awesome.
So one other thing just to pass along as we walk to our next stop is we do have a free RV and boat dump station here at the plant. It's open 24 hours for if your parents have an RV and they need to dump, it's right outside the gate here from the plant. This is our tertiary filtration system.
Okay.
It's currently not online. It's for recycled Class A water.
Okay.
Or Class A recycled water, and eventually we're trying to get some partnerships formed in order to start using it fully. And April's actually working with our environmental policy supervisor to get some partnerships going. We have some interests, and so that's what we want to start using recycled water too, and that'd be more like for cleaning gravel. We already use recycled water in Class C on our poplar farm for watering the trees. But we'd like to start using Class A, and also we could use it to water golf courses, park trees.
Nice.
So we're starting our recycled water network.
And when you talk about the poplar farm, those are the fast grow trees,
Yes.
right? Okay.
So they're considered actually an agricultural crop.
Right.
And what we do with the poplar trees is we treat all the sludge that's created from the digesters goes out to the poplar farm. And then it's dried in open beds.
Yeah.
Well, it first goes into our lagoons and sits there for 4 years. Then it gets dried in open beds.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have one that every year that gets emptied out.
wow.
And those biosolids are then put on our trees. And that's so we don't have to incinerate it or send it to the landfill.
So this water is coming from,
So this water is coming from the secondary clarifiers.
okay.
And this is where we do chemical treatment or removal of the waste. And chlorine, sodium hypochlorite is introduced. And we kill anything left in the water we don't want to discharge or release into the water. Be like biological pathogens, which is an example of that.
Yeah.
So we clean it with sodium hypochlorite, which is basically just really strong chlorine. So if your parents have like a swimming pool, it's just industrial
Right.
chlorine.
Okay.
And then, because we don't want to release sodium hypochlorite into the Willamette River, we come down to this next chamber, which is the straight one, and we introduce sodium bisulfite. And that actually neutralizes the sodium hypochlorite before it goes into the Willamette. So there's another science fact. And what these are called are the chlorine contact chambers, because we want the chlorine and the water to mix together for 30 to 60 minutes. And so it will snake through this water before going from this tank over into here to be neutralized by sodium bisulfite.
Is that anything similar to the foam we see in the ocean sometimes on the coast?
Yes. So it's, again, it's coming from, like organic material, the action of the water.
Yep.
I mean, just all those factors.
Okay.
So back behind this structure here is the Willamette River.
Okay.
And that's where our outfall is at. If we have time, we can walk back there. If not, I was just going to walk through the pipe.
We can see a dump in the river.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Why is there ducks here?
Why are there ducks here?
Oh, well, the water actually has a natural food source for them. So, as you can imagine, there is, from our bodies, is food waste, and the ducks like that food waste.
Ducks like to eat the poop.
That's a much better way of putting it.
Biosolid.
What is
biosolids? So biosolids is the poop that goes down the bottom of the primary and secondary clarifiers that then we push to the digesters to be broke down even more, and then it goes out to our biocycle farm and becomes fertilizer. So biosolids basically is human fertilizer, but we only use it on our poplar trees. It does not go on food crops. It only goes on our poplar trees, which are then harvested for like wood products.
Why is there a maze?
Why is there a maze back there for that water that they
So those are the chlorine contact chambers. And when we introduce the chlorine into the water, we want them to mix for 30 to 60 minutes together, and that will kill any like biological pathogens or anything left in the water that we don't want to release in or put back into the Willamette. So that's why it looks like a snake, so it has enough time to mix together. So right outside this fence line, as you can see, maybe over here, is Willamette River. Here's the river. And so we just we go underneath the grass, the bike path to the Willamette River. And we have 4 diffusers. So they're like round O-rings. They're buried in the Willamette River. If you went over them on an inner tube or a boat, you wouldn't even know they were there. And the water then is gently released back up into the Willamette River.
And it's no longer going to drown us water.
That's right. Yeah.
Awesome.
So that's how it gets back into the Willamette, or goes into the Willamette River.
And it's swimmable.
And it is swimmable.
Okay.
It is actually cleaner water that we put into the Willamette River than what's in the Willamette River naturally.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Hooray. That's an amazing fact.
Yeah. So, and think about it, there's other communities downriver from us that actually pull their drinking water from the Willamette River and then put it through their drinking water system, like to clean it for drinking water.
In Springfield.
Wow.
Downriver
Oh,
from us.
downriver from us.
That'd be like Albany, Salem. And so we have to be good neighbors for other communities downriver.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. Cool.
And just so you kids know, and you may know this already, but our drinking water in Eugene comes from the McKenzie River. So here in Eugene, we have 2 rivers that come through our city, and all of Eugene's drinking water doesn't come from this river, but it comes from the Willamette.
So then we have a third water system in Eugene, Springfield, and that's our stormwater system.
Huh?
And that's where you have a lot of where your biofilters or bioswells. You'll see built in different neighborhoods that water goes through and filtered naturally through rock and soil. And then also why we have stormwater education programs, like when it rains, you see water running down the street and goes into that grate in the street. People shouldn't put paint and oil and stuff down that because it goes straight to the Willamette and McKenzie rivers.
Oh, yeah.
So
And all trash. If your trash ends up falling out of your car into the gutter, and then it floats on down and goes into the stormwater too. And so it's a big way that the litter gets moved from one place to another. And stay tuned because there will be some things coming up from EcoChick about stormwater health coming
Nice.
soon. So yeah.
What? So basically, our trees, the houses, like our houses that are made out of wood, are made out of poop because the poop is fertilizer for the trees.
well, the poplar trees that we grow are not grown for wood products that would help build your house. It's more for like cardboard, paper bags. But by the point it's made into those products, anything that you would think it was associated with poop is gone.
Okay, how about Marley?
How does chlorine clean water?
That's a great question. So chlorine is a disinfectant, and what I mean by that is it cleans or kills anything in the water. So, but it's gentle enough, like it's in your pool, like if it's a lower amount, it just kills anything that's in there. But we do introduce sodium bisulfite because we have a higher concentration of chlorine that then we neutralize it. But that's how chlorine kills stuff.
Good question.
So this pipe that we're walking towards is the pipe I mentioned at the very beginning when we were talking about that system of pipes that brings the wastewater here to the treatment plant. And when it comes into the treatment plant, it's this wide.
Whoa.
So this is the size of pipe.
Go stand in there so they get a perspective for us.
So the pipe is this big. I
That's,
can't even touch.
that's huge. And it's like rushing water in there. Like, is it full or is it?
It depends on the amount of flow we have at the time.
Okay.
So we treat roughly about, I'm trying to remember right, 25 to 30 billion gallons of water a year in a given day. And we didn't look to see what the amount was today. It can be anywhere from, 10 million up to 140 million, depending on rainfall, because we do have infiltration into the system. That's what a lot of what will expand our amount of water coming in.
Right. Okay.
And that's why we have maintenance crews are out constantly out, maintaining pipe and fixing pipe.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to have that infiltration into the system and having those increases. But that you know,
Okay.
that does happen.
Yeah.
It's just like anything when like your streets, you have to maintain them. You have to fix them. So it's just like wastewater systems. You have to fix them.
Yep. Okay.
So you're always having that maintenance or repair or restoration or even rebuild.
Yeah. Okay.
So, so the water, it can be a slower amount coming in, or it can be a lot, really fast,
Okay.
depending on typically the rain, how heavy the rain's been.
Yeah.
So I hope you guys enjoyed today.
Thank you so much. That was really cool to
This
learn.
was my first
this
virtual
process.
tour.
You did great. You were fabulous. Yes. And thank you, April. Eco Chick, thank you so much.